In a great palace there once lived a very rich old lord who had only one little granddaughter whose face he had never seen in all his life. And so when, one day, the old nurse brought the baby to him, he swore that he would never look on her face as long as she lived. So he turned his back and sat by his window looking out over the sea. Meanwhile, his granddaughter grew up with no one to care for her. So she grew up, and her only companion was a crippled gooseherd. And this gooseherd was a queer, merry little chap, and when she was hungry or cold or tired, he would play to her so gaily on his little pipe that she forgot all her troubles. One day the king was to give a great ball in the town nearby for all the lords and ladies of the country. In due time the servants carried the royal invitation up to the old lord, who still sat by the window, weeping into the river that was fed by his tears. He dried his eyes and sent the servants for rich clothes and jewels which he put on. Meanwhile, Tattercoats stood by the kitchen door weeping, and the old nurse went to the lord and begged him to let the girl go with him. But he only frowned and told her to be silent. Now, when the gooseherd had listened to Tattercoats' story, he proposed that they should go together into the town to see the king, and when she looked sorrowfully down at her rags and bare feet, he played a note or two upon his pipe, so gay and merry that she forgot all about her tears and her troubles, and they went down the road towards the town. Before they had gone very far, a handsome young man, splendidly dressed, came riding up and stopped in front of them. He got off his horse and stared at Tattercoats. Then he said, "You are the most beautiful maiden in the world. Will you marry me?" Then the gooseherd smiled to himself and played sweeter than ever. But Tattercoats laughed. "Not I," said she. "Go and ask one of the great ladies, and do not mock poor Tattercoats." But the more she refused him, the sweeter the pipe played, and the deeper the young man fell in love, till at last he begged her to come that night at 12 to the king's ball, just as she was, in her torn petticoat and bare feet, and he would present her to them as his dear and honored bride. So, when night came, and the hall in the castle was full of light and music, and the lords and ladies were dancing before the king, just as the clock struck 12, Tattercoats and the gooseherd, followed by his flock of noisy geese, walked straight through the ballroom. As they came before the throne, the handsome young man rose from beside the king and came to meet her. Taking her by the hand, he turned to the king. "Father," he said, for it was the prince himself, "I have made my choice, and here is my bride, the loveliest girl in all the land, and the sweetest as well." The gooseherd put his pipe to his lips and played a few notes, and as he played, Tattercoats' rags were changed to shining robes sewn with glittering jewels. A golden crown lay upon her golden hair, and the flock of geese behind her became a crowd of dainty pages bearing her long train. And as the king rose to greet her as his daughter, the trumpets sounded loudly in honor of the new princess.